Hi guys, I hope you're well. If you don't know who I am, my name is Thomas Bakemore and I'm a teacher who teaches in Dubai. I'm currently in the UK though. And as part of coming back from Dubai to the UK, I've brought back a range of books with me that I feel like, okay, I'm finished with because they start to accumulate in Dubai and I don't want to have it where I need to sell books. I like to keep the books because I want to build up a bit more of a library. The reason I'm telling you this is because I have a range of different books. I don't know if you can hear that. Here, I'm going to talk through 3 lessons that I've learned from, I want to say 8 different books. It's probably more than that, but yeah, we'll get into it. One of the other things that I've been able to do more this year is being able to read through audiobooks. Audible has been a fantastic platform that's helped me to read more books, and it's definitely something that I suggest to you. There's an affiliate link in the description, so if you want to check that out, feel free to. On the way to work, I'm able to listen to books rather than sit and read and drive. Don't do that. I can listen to books through Audible and it makes it a little bit more efficient and means that I'm reading more as well. So there we go, Audible, check it out. Winner. So let's talk through some of the books that I absolutely loved and have brought back. Some of the books I don't love, so that's also important to say too. First things first, Effortless. Effortless is by Greg McKeown. I've probably said that wrong, and I'm going to be really transparent with you. On the back, I've written my notes so that I can just talk through this video quite frequently. Effortless is about keeping it as simple as possible. The more simple you can keep things, the less they can go wrong. And this book is based on the Essentialism book. I absolutely loved Essentialism. Personally, I thought that this wasn't as strong as Essentialism, but there were some lessons that I learned from that book too. So one of the big things that I learned is don't be afraid to start, because by starting something means that you can fail something. And when you fail something, that means you're learning from that. And that's one of the big things that I emphasize as a teacher to my children is don't be afraid to start something new. Don't be afraid to fail something, because when you fail, you learn something new. The next lesson is learn what others have figured out. And I guess that's why I'm starting with this book. Is one of the big things is you find in literature people have worked and specialized in things for a long time. There are some ancient books, when we talk about the philosophers, things that people have found historically, you can learn from those. So pick out things that people have already figured out, read books, make sure you're doing that, and if you haven't got time to actually practically pick up a book and read it, then you've got things like Audible to support you with that. This book, 3 lessons, keep it simple, don't be afraid to start, and learn what others have figured out. There's what I really like about this book, and perhaps the reason I've index tabbed it, is as I flick through this book, you can see that there's really bold quotes as well. And when I flick through this book to think about this, what could happen in your life if the easy, pointless things became harder and the essential things became easier? So it's about picking out those essential things and making them as easy as possible through a range of different systems that I learned throughout the book. There's also some really cool things and illustrations too. Next book is a book that I don't actually like very much, and that's this one, The Rules of People. This is probably the first self-help book that I bought. I'll be honest, it is a development book, and there's some key things in there. There's a range of different rules, as the title suggests. There's 100 plus. There's lots of different things, but taken from other books, basically. So a nice set of bite-sized lessons. And the reason why I'm not including this is because, I would give this to perhaps a teenager, but if you're reading more development books anyway, not keen. Not going to spend too long on that one. We then move on to the wonderful James Smith, Not a Life Coach. Now this is something because I am a keen fan, if you like, of James Smith and the work that he does in terms of fitness. I chose this book because it spoke highly to me about one of the elements that I'll get into in one of the lessons, and that is fear of success. We talk about fear of failure and fear of missing out. Fear of success is something that I think I get into quite a lot through YouTube and things like that. I have a bank at the moment of about 7 different videos that I'm sat on, and I know I need to edit them. It's almost like this fear of, what if the video does well? What if I actually do well? And it's this fear of something perhaps becoming viral because I know the work that's involved with it. So that's one of the lessons that I've learned from this. There's lots of things from other books in here. So there's a lot of life story about James, which I know there's a lot of fans that appreciate that. And then from that, there's a lot of work from other books that kind of go into there. Carol Dweck is an example, because I'm a primary school teacher. I know that I speak about growth mindset quite frequently to my class, and I know that comes into this book through the psychology element that James brings into it. So He does bring other elements, and perhaps that's something I'm not so keen on with this book, but there's certainly a more relatable tone through the way that he speaks in this book. So one of the things he brought into this book is a certain quote. It's this: if you don't go to them for guidance, don't accept their criticism. As a YouTube content creator, there's a lot of people who will, I don't know, criticize my videos. They are strangers, and often those criticisms can get to me to the point where it completely stumps my creativity. That quote resonates with me, and it's something that I probably have about a bank of 10 quotes in my head. You know, don't be afraid to start, all those sorts of things. That's one of them, because then I'm like, well, would I have gone to this person for support? Are they the ones that are mocking me? No, don't worry about it. Get creative, get busy. And the next one is there's some amazing stuff on sleep, but again, that does come from why we sleep, I feel. But this is definitely, if you're not checked out James Smith on social media, it's definitely worth checking out. He has a certain tone. You'll figure that one out when you check out his content. Yeah, good book, although perhaps lots of other things from other books too. So that one's worth checking out. Next one is it's a lovely story. It's not something perhaps I've got 3 life lessons from. It's something that I bought to share with my class initially, and I found that actually it's really relatable for lots of other adults. And it's this. I always say it the wrong way around. The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. This is just a beautiful book, to be completely honest with you. And the quotes in here are, yeah, just beautiful, to be honest. The way that they're illustrated is lovely. This is one of the quotes that I was going to share with you anyway, and it's what is the bravest thing you've ever said? Asked the boy. Help, said the horse. When I read that to my class, I nearly cried. But particularly from a mental health stance, it was just something that really resonated with me, because it takes a lot for a man to actually say help. Look, it's choking me up already. Yeah, this is a great book full of lots of different quotes, and it'd be great to share with a child or just have a quick flick through. It's not going to take you a long time, but there's some amazing quotes in this book. So that was one of them. My class absolutely loved the mole and some of the quotes he has about food. The last great quote in this is, being kind to yourself is the greatest kindness. Yeah, lovely quotes, definitely worth checking out. This is something that I would recommend in hard copy though. I love this illustration on the front and the gold. It's not embroidery, engraved. Let me know down in the comments what it's called. Next one is something that I love it. I actually love it, but you need to reread it all the time. That's something the author says. It's a psychology book, and I've become a little bit more obsessed, I suppose, with psychology this year and understanding it. So it's the mind management system. So it's the Chimp Paradox is the book, and there's lots of different systems in the book for helping you understand your emotional and logical brain. The chimp is your emotional brain, and then the logical is your human brain. So it's to help you sort of create, to help your emotions, to help you manage your emotions by understanding them and what's going to trigger them. We communicate in 4 ways, says the book. You've got, when you're triggered by emotions, you've got chimp versus human. So when you're having a conversation with another person, if they annoy you, then you're more likely to be triggered in your chimp state. And as a result, you're not able to reason and do things and communicate effectively. So you've got chimp versus human, human versus chimp, then you've got human versus human, and that perhaps is the best way of conversating and having those chats. Then you've got chimp versus chimp, and that's just an all-out war where people are just arguing, and you've seen that. So being more reasoning and assertive can help you with making sure that human communication comes through. From there, the chimp always wants more is one of the really strong lessons that I've learned from this book. It's that psychology of, yeah, you always want more. And with YouTube, I definitely fall into this boat. I reached 10,000 subscribers, which is a real big dream for me. And then I was like, oh well, 20,000. 1 million views is next. You always want more, and it's definitely worth stopping, taking a break, and appreciating that, as I'm doing now when it's Christmas. This, really strong book, but does take a while for you to understand. Definitely worth rereading over and over, and something that I'm going to do is make sure that I reread this hefty book. Next one, I don't even think I can show you the book. Right, Orange Book. Orange Book, Mark Manson, The Subtle Art of. It's a great book. I can't share it because I have sometimes got children coming onto these videos, and I'm sure you can appreciate that. It's a great book though, and there's some lessons that I learned, and I'll just peel a little post-it note off. Life isn't meant to go your way all the time, but gosh, isn't that relatable? Where you often have those emotional roller coasters, and it's a bit of a challenge at times. In fact, not even at times, frequently is a challenge. It's a subtle art of, I can't even say the title. It's, yeah, things are going to go wrong, kind of deal with it, but the systems are shared on how to deal with it. Doing too much is the same as doing nothing. Again, relatable, when this year I've tried to do lots of different things, but perhaps being not as focused on concentrating on one thing. And then failure is part of life. Fear of failure is worse than failure itself. So, as I said before, failure, you know, you're going to learn from those lessons, but if you're fearing failure, it means you're not going to start that project, and it goes back to effortless. Next one is something that I've tried to focus on more this year, and it's digital minimalism. Digital minimalism is a hard thing to say many times. Digital minimalism is where we know we are addicted to our devices. I don't know about you, but I find myself more frequently at the moment picking up my device regularly, especially during these more challenging times throughout the world. And apps know that. Apps are really good. Apps are really, really good at making us pick up our phone and think about, yeah, I need to see this message. And that's where digital minimalism comes in. And there's a few different lessons that I've learned to try and bring myself away from the online mobile world. So starting off, don't tap like, believe it or not, is one of the things that I perhaps tried to do a little bit more of. I do still tap like, I'm not going to lie, I've never tapped it since reading this book. But being more aware and more accepting of conversations. So when you're watching this video, yeah, a like is nice, but I'd rather you put your comments down of some of the great books that you have read this year. Please do that, by the way. Let me know some of the great books that you've read this year down in the comments. I can start to reply to those too. Yeah, that's one of the big lessons. Another thing that I've learned this year is this concept that he has of trying to make apps and digital things less accessible. So he talks about the concept of moving apps around, and that's something I've tried to do on my phone. Is I used to have a social media folder full of Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Now I move them into places and I try and forget about them. Don't get me wrong, I figured out that you can search TikTok on the iPhone and quickly get onto it that way. Perhaps not the best thing, but it's perhaps there's been a few times where I'm looking for TikTok on my phone and gone, why are you looking for it? And that's the big thing, is having those moments of why are you looking for TikTok? Isn't there something more practical that you could be doing right now? Which brings me on to the next part. Practical activities is something that is really beneficial. Having those practical activities, those times of actually socialising in person, can then help you bring yourself away from more digital things. Going back to lesson 2, I've moved apps around, but another thing I've tried to do is have devices where it's more for being productive. So I have my iPad Pro, it's more about being productive, and I'm also a little bit more productive on my laptop now, which means that I leave my phone and the waste of time apps out of the way. Really good book. It was a nice, easy one to read through, full of lots of really good tips. The last one is Greg McKeown's first book that I spoke about at the start of the video, and that is Essentialism. I absolutely love this book. I'm a little bit disappointed that I brought this book back from Dubai, and I'm probably going to end up bringing it back to Dubai because there's so much great information in this book. There are many different lessons that I learned from this book, and it's really easy to digest. Essentialism is mainly about thinking about whether you're stretched too thin and how to reduce that feeling of being stretched too thin. One of the big lessons that I learned about during this is how to say no. And it's that conversation that you might need to have with a manager, where if they're trying to ask you to do something, it's, yeah, okay, but what do you want me to prioritize as part of this? You can just say, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. Or no, thank you, because I've got this. You can give those reasons, but helping yourself reason by talking to that other individual and saying, well, what would you like me to prioritize, really makes them think about the things that you have on your plate that they might not have thought about. Some great advice on that section of how to say no. So another thing is there's a difference between hyperactivity and productivity. there's some reflection here on Mark Manson's book and the advice here. So think about what the vital few is. What I mean by the vital few, what's the really important stuff versus the stuff that doesn't really make much of an impact. One of the other books that I've read, I think it was last year, not this year, was the 80-20 principle, and it's the concept of 20% of the stuff matters most to your development, and 80% of the stuff is kind of meh. Not the most academic way of describing it, but yeah. If it isn't a hell yes, it's a hell no. My gosh, this quote is one of the others that once I read this has now stuck in my head. There has been a number of times where I've been asked to do something, whether it's collaborate, whether it's been to do a project where I've been a bit like, not sure. There have been times where I've been not sure and I've gone for it anyway. That's okay. But there are times where I've repeated this quote in my head. It's not a hell yes, it's a hell no, and just gone, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. And that's okay. That's a really great quote, and one of the big reasons why I love this book. Have clear boundaries. That was emphasised in this book as well, but I learned it first in this one, which is why I wrote that down. Have clear boundaries and make sure you got things like out of office things set up on your phone. I try not to reply to, we have WhatsApp chats for work. If I see comments of people just talking about trivial things from throughout the day, I won't reply to them. I've turned off my notifications for emails this year. Oh my gosh, that's been a massive, massive lifesaver. Definitely worth doing. And one of the big things that actually makes me think about this book is what to actually focus your time on. So by saying no, creating these boundaries, by freeing up this time and focusing on the vital few, what will you do with this time? One of the things he said in this book that is so true is time to think. One of the things I've loved about being back in the UK is that I'm not surrounded by this abundance of stuff to do. So it actually gives me more time to just think about where I want this channel to go in the future, where I want to go professionally in the future, my own goals. That time to think is important. And then of course you've got things like family time, actually spending time with friends and family, and also being practical, being fit. Those things are also important and perhaps not emphasized today enough in modern society. Really, really good book, and I definitely recommend it. Of course, as I've said about 80-20 principle, there's been books that I've read frequently, but I can't show you physically because they have been audiobooks. A cool example of this is Never Split the Difference. Great book, really good book. Psychology of Persuasion, The 48 Laws of Power. There's a range of different books that I've read, but not read physically, read through audiobook and just listened to on the way to work, which is where I'll plug the Audible. If you want to check out some of the books that I've talked about within this video, I'll leave affiliate links in the description, and that also gives a kickback to the channel and helps me out too. If you did enjoy the video, I said I wasn't going to do this, digital minimalism, I was going to say, if you enjoyed the video, feel free to like it, but I'd prefer you to comment. Comment some of the books that you've loved reading this year. As you can see, there's a bit of a theme going on the types of books that I enjoy reading, so definitely comment those books that you feel would be more suited towards me, or just general books that you enjoy too. If you haven't had a chance to do it yet, subscribe to the channel so you can see future videos like this and my life in Dubai as a teacher. Until the next time guys, I'm out.